Hi, welcome back to the pod, or welcome if you're new. Hi, hello, nice to have you here. For anybody who doesn't know, my name's Anya, and this is a place that I come to talk about how I've created more happiness in my own life and how you can potentially create more in yours. It is lovely to be back on the microphone again after another over month-long break, but I'm going to keep the yap and the ramble really brief today because my eyes almost bugged out of my head when I finished editing the last episode that I released and realised that it was over an hour long, which was not the intention. The intention today is to have it significantly shorter than that because I want to keep these at a listenable length. So I'm not going to go into a very rambly explanation as to what I've been doing, but it has involved lots of fun birthday celebrations, both for me and my boyfriend, because our birthdays are in the same week. And sorry, I don't know if you can hear that either. My phone is popping off. I'm very popular. That was sarcasm. What else have I been doing? Oh, and lots of gigging. So if you can see my horrendous eye bags, I was working until 1:30 in the morning today, technically, because it is now 1:30 in the afternoon. So I finished work 12 hours ago and I've had about 4 hours of sleep. So if you can tell by looking at me, my apologies. And I can't promise that I won't stumble over my words today and use the wrong words, because the last time that I filmed an episode when I was significantly tired, I think last thing at night, when I was listening back to it, realised that there were just so many sentences that I had used the complete wrong word in. So if anything doesn't make sense, I might just add a little subtitle, but hopefully it will. Anyway, let's start talking about the actual episode. I haven't decided what I'm going to title this yet, but I'm assuming that the title of it is going to have let you know already. We'll go with that. But this is going to be me chatting through my Sunday reset slash self-care day itinerary, but I don't do on Sundays, but I actually do on Mondays, and also giving you some ideas of things that I don't do, but that I know that other people do and enjoy and get something from, that you could add to your self-care day or reset day itinerary. It's different from everything I've put out so far. Like, I've not really done another episode like this, but it's the kind of content that I really like listening to and like consuming. I love hearing about other people's routines and other people's fun days. And yeah, I just want to give some inspiration to somebody, hopefully inspire somebody to take a day for themselves, or prompt somebody to think about what they could do to look after themselves, or insert some fun into their sort of everyday slash weekly routine. You know, I like hearing about what other people do to have fun and to look after themselves and set themselves up for a successful week. So this episode is for anybody else who also likes that kind of content and could potentially take some inspiration from it, or that somebody who's never done one of these types of days before could try it out and have literally the best day of their entire week, which it quite frequently is for me. I like taking a whole day out for these activities because knowing that I have a whole day set aside with no responsibilities or other commitments lets me fully relax into it and be present with what I'm doing. And it's blocked out entirely for me to do things that are going to set me up for a happy and successful week, as well as things that I'm just going to enjoy and get lots of pleasure from, so that, like my aim always is, I'm putting my happiness and enjoyment of my life at the forefront of my priorities. So let's just get straight into it. The first thing on the itinerary for the day is always to have a lie-in, which for me means waking up at 8, which I know for plenty of people is going to sound absolutely ridiculous and not like a lie-in at all. But for context, I get up at 5 a.m. every other day of the week, which I love and like is a really important part of my lifestyle and routine, and contributes massively to my happiness because I always have time to look after myself first thing in the morning, whatever I'm doing with the rest of the day, whether I'm working or not. But it does mean that I have to get to bed really early to get 8 hours of sleep in. And I would be lying if I said that historically it had happened more than or even 50% of the time. I'm usually getting under 8 hours of sleep, sometimes under 7. And having a lie-in first thing on this day means that however poor my sleep has been for the rest of the week, I'm prioritizing getting at least 8 hours in before that day is starting, because I'll never go to bed unless I'm working like I was last night, which is just that doesn't happen very often, so it doesn't really count. But ordinarily, I'm never usually in bed later than 11:30, and I can fall asleep pretty quickly. So I'll be asleep by midnight, and waking up at 8 allows me to get those really important 8 hours of quality sleep in. And obviously different people will function at their best on a different amount of sleep. For me, it's 8 hours. For other people, it might be more or less. But I would recommend getting up at a time that means you're going to have allowed yourself your optimum number of hours the night before. Also, giving myself that lie-in feels like a really nice moment of true balance and self-love. Again, I love my super early morning routine and how good it makes me feel physically and mentally. But part of that, it making me feel really good mentally, is the fact that I have to push past my feelings to get out of bed at that time. And it is really blissful every once in a while to take this day for myself and just lean into that innate human desire for comfort and stay in my warm bed and just get up slowly. Then once I'm awake, I'm either putting on a workout set or some sweats or a mix of both, just something really cozy and soft and warm and comfortable that I'm not going to mind sweating in because I'm going to be up and on my feet and moving about for most of the day. Then I'm having a smoothie for breakfast that I've made the night before so that I can just grab it out of the fridge and have it straight away. I have this for breakfast pretty much every day anyway, but I especially appreciate having something healthy and pre-made on these days because it means I can get a full and nutritious meal in me within 30 minutes of waking up and without having to exert any effort or to cook or prep or anything. And I can also drink it whilst I'm doing like the first bit of my morning routine, which is my journaling, which takes me about 15 minutes. So then at about 8:30, I go on my usual 10-minute morning walk to get some sunlight on my skin and in my eyes and trigger that release of serotonin that's going to help me stay in a good mood and stay calm and energized for the rest of the day. Usually when I go on these 10-minute walks, I walk to my gym and back because that's a 5-minute walk away from my flat. And there's actually a cafe next to my gym that ordinarily I wouldn't go in, but on these self-care days, I go in and I get myself a coffee or a matcha and a sweet treat of some kind and take it back home with me. 99% of the time, I'm also going on my morning walk without headphones in. So the 5-minute walk back is a really nice mindfulness opportunity to pay attention to and concentrate on what I can see and what I can hear and what I can taste with the drink that I've bought. And that's really good for me as well and has the additional benefit of making me feel like I've gotten my £6 worth of liquid. Then when I'm back, because I live with my boyfriend Ed, we'll have a chat about who's in what days of the week, who's going to cook, what we want to eat, and then we'll write up a shopping list and go and do our food shop for a week. We're really lucky as well in that we have a really large food shop, another 5-minute walk away from us, so we can get that done within about half an hour. And then usually about 10 o'clock, I have my first social media moment of the day, which if you listen to my 12th episode on hacking your happy hormones, you'll know what I'm talking about. But if you didn't, I read this amazing book called The Dose Effect by TJ Power, and in it he talked about how to help his dopamine levels throughout the day. He has 3 moments where he allows himself to open social media per day, and that's it. And those for him are 10 a.m, 3 p.m, and 8 p.m. My times change from day to day depending on whether I'm working or not, but on these self-care days, my first social media moment is at 10 o'clock, and that's the first time that I take my phone off of airplane mode for the day. But I don't just open the social media apps and start scrolling. I have this little ritual that I do on my days off, which I haven't spoken about on the podcast yet, but plays a huge role in my life, which I extremely creatively called TikTok time. And it is when I open my app, set a 30-minute timer on TikTok, and I scroll through videos, but it's not like I don't just scroll and passively consume. I have a couple of rules that I stick to. So I'm not allowed to skip videos unless it's something super rogue that's obviously completely irrelevant to me. But that doesn't often happen because my algorithm's been quite well trained. So I'm not allowed to skip videos. I don't swap between the For You page and following and search. So because I work 4 days a week, I do this TikTok time 3 days a week. So I do 1 day on my For You page, 1 day on following, and 1 day on what's come up from a prompt that I've put into the search bar. And I make notes while I'm scrolling. Incidentally, sorry if you're not watching and you're just listening, but These are all of my notes, literally just from TikTok from 2025 so far. And 3 of these books are completely full. There you go. I said I'd use the wrong words. This is one that I'm on currently. But yeah, anybody who knows me well or who listened to, I think in my second episode, I spoke about it, knows that social media played a massive role in me managing to drastically improve and heal my own mental health. And I've learned so much from other amazing content creators and also podcasts and books and techniques that they've then recommended. And so content consumption to me is really important, and I think it adds a lot of value to my life, but I do think that there are important boundaries to put around it so that it stays helpful rather than harmful. And this is a way of doing it for me that works really, really well. I also just love hearing about and reading about other people's perspectives on happiness and life and joy and different topics, and I love watching other people's daily and weekly routines and taking inspiration from that and applying it to my own. I love hearing about how other people romanticize their life and romanticize their day-to-day. I love getting inspiration for new things to try. I'll talk more about all of that later. But I also suspect that the way that I consume short-form content is a lot less damaging to my long-term dopamine levels because I'm not watching things on double speed. I'm not scrolling quickly and passively through videos. I'm pausing them to take note, which, as well as just for me being much more enjoyable, I just think is a potentially healthier way of consuming content. So that's something that I do once a day on my days off. If anybody wants to try it, I would recommend starting a new account. And what I always do, because I used to start lots of new accounts, if I went for a wobbly patch or I just wanted a different algorithm, wanted to see a new set of videos, get some fresh inspiration, I would start a new account, and the first thing I would do would be to go to the search bar and search how to be happy, because that's what I want to see content surrounding. That's one of the things I care about the most. And again, I would set a 30-minute timer, watch the videos that came up when I searched that, like and interact with them, and then that would get the algorithm going in the right direction. So I would recommend thinking about what kind of content you want to see, what things you want to change about your life. Think of a prompt relating to that and put that in as one of the first things that you do. Also, just to add a point before we move on from this, I do think the taking notes bit is crucial because it sets an intention to actually act on what you're consuming. It is very, very easy to passively scroll through 50 videos on healthy habits in 30 minutes and see 100 different ideas of good habits and activities that you could implement into your life and feel really good and pumped up and motivated from watching all of that content, and to have all the best intentions, but then to never actually take an action step and get anywhere close to implementing them into your life. So even though it might feel much better than passively scrolling would in terms of you feel like you're doing something good for you, in reality, it's had no more effect on changing your life than passively scrolling would have done. Whereas making a note of which of those habits you want to start implementing and how you might start to go about that is taking an action step. And without action steps, motivation and good intentions aren't going to get you anywhere. Also, I'm aware that this isn't quite the same thing, but there's a stat from a study that Michael Smoke quotes all the time. He's another content creator that I mention a lot. I really like his stuff. It's always linked in my episode descriptions if you want to go and check it out. But yeah, he talks about this study where they found out that people were 40% more likely to achieve their goals if they literally just wrote them down. And to me, the sentiment feels kind of the same here. Because again, it is turning positive intentions into an intentional action step, which is what gets the ball rolling. So back to the itinerary. I leave about 45 minutes for that activity in case the timer goes off when I'm on a 10-minute video that I want to finish. Like, I don't close the app immediately. I'll finish writing about whatever I'm watching. And then I go on to my next activity, which is to start planning my week. Sometimes I pop to a gym down the road and hop on the treadmill while I'm doing this because I quite like moving while I'm doing work sometimes, or planning things or organising things on my phone. It makes me feel good. I often notice an increase in focus when I'm moving whilst I'm walking. And it's also just a fantastic habit stack. You're getting movement in, doing something that's good for your body physically whilst getting your work done. It's something that I know that Shelby Sacco does a lot. I talk about her all the time. If you're new, again, her profile will be linked in my episode description. Also, if you do this habit stack at the gym, so if you go to a treadmill at the gym and do work or organizational or admin tasks on your phone at the same time, you get the added benefit of being in an environment which is basically solely dedicated to self-improvement and hard work, and you're surrounded by other people putting in hard work and focus, albeit physically, which in turn puts me in a great headspace to crack out some focused and effective and efficient work. So yeah, if it's gonna take me 20 minutes or more to plan the week, then I'll pop down to the gym to do it. If it's not and it's going to be a shorter task, then I'll just stay at home and do it from a sofa. And this is the part of a routine that is the reason that I do it on a Monday and not a Sunday. There is this content creator and writer that I love called Hannah Connolly, and again, I'll link all her socials so you can find them easily. But she's a writer, she has a Substack. I don't actually know what her day job is. I know she has one, like she's not just a content creator, but she is the social media queen of romanticizing your life, in my humble opinion. Every week and every month she puts out a post on how to spice up and romanticize that week or month, and I read them religiously. I live for them. I'm so excited for the one that's going to come out later this afternoon, and I add loads of ideas from them to my to-do list every week and every month. The posts are great because she adds loads of different ideas each week of new fun things and experiences that you can add to your calendar and get you outside of rerunning the same everyday routine on autopilot. But she'll also include some nice ideas on things you can do that maybe aren't as fun but are great things to do to look after yourself. Like, I think they're often things like clean or organise this specific part of the house, or your bag that you take to work, or book the dentist appointment that I know you definitely haven't done, which I'm always called out by. But because each week's post is kind of like a surprise checklist, it almost gamifies the experience, and it makes doing those things feel actually fun. And yeah, it makes me enjoy things that I wouldn't ordinarily choose to do. I also love that it's a great way to make sure that I am prioritizing new experiences and fun and joy just as much as I am prioritizing my healthy habits and personal growth and work. Because I think that for so many of us, whether you're studying at school or uni, or you have a personal project or side hustle that you're working on continuously, like me with a podcast, or whether you have a freelance career like Ed, who's a professional musician, or just even if you have a job that you cannot just completely leave behind in the office or leave at your workplace when you clock out, we can find it so easy to never make time for fun because our to-do list never ends. You know, it can be really hard to step away from your to-do list when there will always be more to do. There will always be one more past paper you could go through before your exam, or half an hour more you could spend going through flashcards, and there will always be more research for me to do, and there will always be more trumpet practice for Ed to do, whatever your personal scenario is. So it can be so easy to say things to yourself like, oh yeah, wild swimming or hopping on a train to a seaside town that I've never been to. They sound like really fun ideas. Those are things that I'll do at some distant point in the future when I'm not so busy. But newsflash, that point in the future never comes. So if you are one of these people who has what I would call a never-ending job or project or responsibility on their shoulders, I think you have to intentionally block out time for fun and joy and new experiences and add them to your to-do list like you would any task that you absolutely have to get done and there's a clear deadline for. Actually, I think that's something else that contributes to this phenomenon. That's a hard word. There's something else that contributes to that where I think people delay doing things that they perceive as fun and unproductive because there's rarely a deadline on spending an afternoon reading under a tree in the park or going to a farmer's market on a Saturday morning. And realistically, there's not going to be an immediate negative consequence if we don't do those things, like there is going to be if we fail to sounds really harsh. If we neglect to clean our house or our flat, or do the task that our boss told us to do, or do enough revision for an exam that we've got coming up. But if we never prioritize new and fun experiences, there then becomes an equally real negative long-term consequence, which is that we end up deprioritizing joy and happiness from our lives, and we miss out on all the incredible experiences that this big wide world has to offer. So I do think that if you want to have fun and experience play and joy and frivolities and new things, I think you have to put them in your calendar, like you make the time for the things that you think you have to do. And these posts have been such a fun way for me to do that, and I love hopping on the treadmill on a Monday morning and looking at my calendar and thinking, okay, this month I've been challenged to take pizzas to the beach with a friend and go wild swimming and make homemade pesto. When am I going to fit these things into my calendar? What days are they going to work on? So she releases these posts almost always on a Sunday afternoon, which is why I like doing this day on a Monday, because I like having the morning and like the first couple of hours of the afternoon to be for the planning and reset and productive activities, and then I like taking the rest of the afternoon and evening to be the fun stuff. So if I did this day on a Sunday, she would release it too late for me to do my planning in the morning, which is why I do it on my Monday. After I've planned my week, I start meal prepping. When I was at uni and I used to try and do Sunday reset days, I would try and prep an entire week's worth of breakfasts and lunches and dinners all in one afternoon, which I no longer do because whilst I enjoy cooking, I like making a meal and then it starts to feel tedious. And also it meant that I would end up with an entire kitchen's worth of washing up to do, which I never wanted to do, having spent 3 or 4 hours cooking meals for the entire week, so it would quite often end up not getting done. So I would have what I called a Sunday reset day, which was meant to be setting me up for success for the week, but I would finish it feeling grumpy and tired and with a bomb site of a kitchen, which also probably pissed off my housemates, which was not an ideal start to a week and not ideal for them or anybody involved. Anyway, the point is, I don't think it's a sensible idea to overwhelm yourselves on these days and be like, I have to get my whole life together and get everything sorted. I think just getting a bit of everything done is going to leave you feeling lots better. It's just more realistic and there's probably going to be a better outcome. I've been loving batch making Marry Me chickpeas. If anybody wants a really good vegetarian recipe recommendation, I'll link it in the episode description. But they're nice because they work for lunches, they work for dinners. I'll make about 8 portions and then between me and Ed, we'll always get through them by the end of the week. Because it's veggie, it will last up to 7 days in the fridge. Also, they are really quick and easy to make. It takes me about 20 minutes to make, like I said, 8 portions, and then there's minimal washing up. So highly recommend trying them or finding a recipe like it where there's not going to be a massive job of cleaning up at the end to do and that isn't going to take up a massive chunk of your time. You can put a nice playlist on while you're doing it, put a podcast on, put something on the TV, make it fun, make it an enjoyable activity as opposed to seeing it as a chore. Once the meal prep is all done, we get on to cleaning. I set myself a 2-hour timer and I just try and blitz through my flat. I clean and tidy as much as I possibly can in that time constraint. And I like giving myself a decent chunk of time to do this because it lets me turn what would otherwise be called a chore into an event of itself. It makes it easier to make it fun, to romanticize it. You know, I can put candles on in different rooms. If I'm doing a lot of work in the kitchen living room space, the room I'm in now is also my kitchen and my dining room. Like, we just have one living area. So if I'm in here, I'll put something nice on my TV, or if I'm in the bedroom and bathroom, I'll put a really good podcast on again, or a really good playlist. If Ed's out, I'll have a sing-song, I'll have a dance party, I'll have a drink out with me. Just make it fun. I think with so many of the things I've mentioned already, it can be so easy to see them as obligations and things that you have to do and things that are going to put you in a bad mood. But actually, equally, it can be just as easy to say, no, I'm going to make this fun and, you know, I'm going to be able to enjoy the fruits of my labour at the end of it. I'm going to have a really nice clean and tidy flat to look forward to. And yeah, I'm going to get something out of doing it. I'm going to listen to some great music. I'm going to learn something. I'm going to be entertained. What I'm trying to say is these things can be made fun if you choose to make them that way. Another way I used to approach cleaning the flat was I would do it right at the start of my day instead. So pretty much as soon as I was out of bed, I would start, and then once my 2-hour timer was done, that's when I would go and do my walk and go and get myself a coffee. And then the coffee was almost like a reward or like payment to myself for doing it. And when you're getting paid for something, it always feels so much nicer. But again, I think thinking about the reward, that is a really difficult word to say. I think thinking about the reward that you will get at the end of doing things like household chores is just a good way to stay cheerful about doing them. And the effects are going to be amplified if you're getting 2 treats at the end instead of just one, because obviously the first one is you're going to have a lovely, clean, tidy space to enjoy the rest of your day in. But the second one is that you're going out and getting yourself something really tasty at the end of it. Or if you don't want to go out and spend money and buy something for yourself afterwards, you could just plan a fun activity for when you're done, which is what I do now. But before I talk about that, there are a couple of things that are non-negotiables for me in that 2-hour time slot, like stripping the bed, putting fresh bedding on, washing the old sheets, washing the towels I've used the previous week, getting new ones out, checking the fridge for anything that needs throwing out or anything that needs using up, making sure that the bins are getting taken out. I say that because I don't do them myself, because I am a princess and that is Ed's job. And I do my ironing for the week, I get my clothes ready for the next day, and I get my work bag ready if I'm going to work. Actually, the bin thing is funny because I don't have a problem with doing it at work when there's like manky gone off milk dripping from the bottom of it all over me. But again, maybe that's because I'm being paid to do it, and something about doing it for free at home just doesn't appeal. Thank God for men. I feel like that sounds really odd without context. I work at a coffee shop. That's why there's manky milk going all over me whenever I take the bins out. Oh, also, I completely forgot to say, I do actually eat lunch. Like when I do the meal prepping, I eat a portion of it after, just in case anybody was concerned. Get your 3 meals a day. Anyway, that's all done by about 2 o'clock. And that's when like the reset and setting myself up for a week portion of the day is done. And when I go into the self-care and fun bit of the day, which is my very generous and substantial reward for doing all of that horrible cleaning. The first thing on the agenda is always to go on a hot girl walk, which is literally just a podcast walk, or I go for one with Ed and we get in some quality time together and have a good chat. But also, if audiobooks are more your thing, I mean, I'm assuming that if you're listening to this, you like podcasts to some degree, but you could listen to an audiobook or you could call someone. But I like getting a half an hour walk in, getting some substantial movement, again, more sunlight. Also, this is another nice opportunity to go and pick yourself up a treat if you'd rather do it at this time of day, or if you just want another one. The cafe that I work at, which is about 10-15 minutes away from me, has started selling really, really good cookies. So I think that might actually become like a permanent activity in the reset day itinerary, is going and getting myself a cookie from there. Because then also it stops me from getting them for lunch every day, which there's nothing wrong with, but because they're huge, whenever I've eaten one, I never end up wanting to eat anything else. And finishing 5 hours of a shift on a cookie, I don't think is sensible. Also, it just makes me enjoy it more. I think when you save things for specific days, like, you enjoy it so much more when you've had time to get excited about something. Like, I'm all for treating yourself, like having nice things, doing fun things after work, like getting a cookie, getting a sweet treat, getting spontaneous coffees. But I do think it's also really beneficial and enjoyable to, I can't think of another word or phrase, because like abstain sounds really intense, but like I do think when you, I don't know how else to say it, when you don't allow yourself to have things, but you know that you've got a day set aside for it or time set aside for it at some point in the calendar in the future, I think it's so much better and more pleasurable when you actually get it, because you've had so long to get excited about it, which I think is partly why I love these days so much in general, is because I love my healthy habits and I love my routine and I love my lifestyle, because it makes me feel so good physically and mentally to eat healthily and work out and read and work on my podcast instead of just scrolling or watching TV or gaming every night when I come home from work. But it is so nice every once in a while to know that I've got a day in the calendar coming up where I can just be as unproductive as I want for the afternoon, and I can just enjoy all my favourite things. That was a very long-winded way of saying that sometimes things are more enjoyable when they're a one-off treat as opposed to having them every day. But yeah, after the walk, it's everything shower time. I love going full hog on this. I got us a phone holder that goes on our bathroom wall in the shower so that I can put my phone in and put Netflix on while I'm having the shower. I'll get myself a mini can of Coke out of the fridge and put a little glass straw in it to feel fancy and have that on the side as well. And I like having a specific show for these days, again, so that I can save it and make it a special thing and look forward to it. So I stick Gossip Girl on because that's my current self-care day TV show, and I do my everything shower, wash my hair, exfoliate, shave everything. What else do I do? Sometimes I do a hair mask. When I get out, I'll put on body lotion and body oil, which again is something that I wouldn't do ordinarily because part of me feels like, what's the point if I'm going to wash it off in the shower or bath 12 hours later? But that's what these days are for. They are for the small indulgences that I wouldn't indulge in on an ordinary everyday. Also, if you know, you absolutely do not need me to explain this to you, but freshly clean, moisturised legs in clean PJs and clean sheets is quite literally, no exaggeration, one of the best physical feelings you can experience. I think everybody needs to try it at least once in my lifetime. So then once I literally feel like a seal, I get into the previously mentioned clean PJs, put my hair up in a towel, get into the living room, light a candle, snuggle up under a blanket on the sofa with my sweet treat from earlier next to me and maybe another can of Coke, and I get my laptop out and I play The Sims 3 for anywhere up to 3 hours depending on how I'm feeling. For context, when I was a kid, a teenager, little, I was big into video and computer games, and when I discovered The Sims, it was game over, no pun intended, for literally everything else, because it is by far the most superior game in existence, in my opinion. Nothing matches it fun-wise. So I really enjoy taking this part of the day to have fun, indulge in something that I used to love when I was younger, and that, again, I wouldn't do on an ordinary weekday or weekend even. I do prioritise spending my time on things that would be seen as more like quote unquote productive, and even my hobbies that I'll spend time on every day I'll be more likely to lean towards things like reading than watching TV or playing games, which, for the record, I don't think this is a bad thing. And this is another side note, but I think for anybody who has big life goals or has things that they want to achieve, I think it is okay and it is definitely necessary to be really intentional with how you spend your time and to work out exactly where all your time is going. And it would be very easy for me to spend 1 or 2 hours every day after work gaming, or even just half an hour, or even just an hour on like every weekend or a weekend day. But if I was doing that, I just wouldn't be living in alignment with the way that I want to live. I wouldn't be living in alignment with the goals that I want to achieve, because that's all time that I could be spending working on this podcast or learning new things or reading new books. There are just other things that are more important to me most of the time to be spending my time on. But it is nice every once in a while to have a day where I don't think about that and it is just about fun. And having this time set aside to indulge means that I don't find myself craving it the rest of the time, and I am more than happy to spend my free time after work, before work, on my days off, working on this podcast and reading things and listening to other podcasts and researching. Also, those hours would rack up quickly if this is something I was doing more regularly. And whilst, I might still be able to do the podcast and get the content out that I want to, I might not then have as much time to do things like try all the new experiences that Hannah Connolly tells me to. You know the quote, you can do anything but you can't do everything. I just like to remind myself of that, of like, I am in almost full control of my life, and I know that I'm extremely privileged to be able to say that. And I do genuinely feel like for most things I could do in this life, but I do have to make choices about what I spend my time on because we don't have unlimited time. So all of that is just to say that I actually don't think it's a bad idea to limit the time that you spend indulging in things like TV and scrolling on social media and gaming, especially with things that are highly dopaminergic and that are more immediately stimulating and highly pleasurable and addictive. Because also, the more you indulge in those, the more it's going to affect your motivation levels and your ability to focus and your enjoyment of other things. Like if I was spending a lot more time than I am on social media and on gaming, it probably would reduce the amount of enjoyment that I got from working on a podcast and doing the research. But yeah, to put it more succinctly, it makes it so much more fun when I reserve it for these special days instead of gravitating towards it on every day off, because it's the easiest source of pleasure and fun and quick dopamine. But if you're making your own reset/self-care day itinerary based on or inspired by this one, I would call this portion of the day your favourite activity or favourite hobby slot, or the hobby that you don't usually make time for. And no matter how unproductive it is, this is your time to indulge in it. So whilst I'm playing The Sims in my pyjamas with my sweet treat, Ed usually goes to pick us up a takeaway, or sometimes he'll cook us like a nice indulgent meal. I quite like having sweet potato mac and cheese on these days. He does an incredible one with air fryer broccoli, and I think he made the recipe up for the mac and cheese actually. So maybe at some point when I've worked out the whole TikTok shebang, I will get him to make a video of that because the world needs it. Oh my God, it's so good. So when he's back with the food or he's done cooking, Sims time is over and we'll sit and have dinner together with whatever we're watching on TV on, which at the moment is White Lotus, which again, incredible recommendation. Oh my God, if you've not seen it. Cannot recommend it enough. Especially if you liked Saltburn. If you've seen Saltburn and you liked that film, White Lotus gives me Saltburn vibes. I love it. It's just, I'll be screaming, I'll be laughing. It's outrageous. Highly recommend. So then after dinner and a super speedy washing up of plates or binning of takeaway containers, I dry my hair and then I do my usual last minute nighttime routine bits, like my last bits of skincare, brushing my teeth, and then getting into bed for 8 o'clock to read and or journal and turn the light off at some point before 9. And thus concludes my reset/self-care/Sunday, which is on a Monday, reset self-care day routine. Whatever I'm calling it. So that's everything that I do to set myself up for a successful week and to treat myself. But I wanted to finish with a little segment of other ideas or things that I've seen other people do that you can choose from or take inspiration from to create your own routine. I've got a list, so if I'm like looking in misdirection throughout this, I'm just reading off what I've written down. But the first one is taking an hour at some point in the day to do quite literally whatever you feel like doing in the moment. I have spoken before about how I think it's actually really important to develop a skill and learn how to push through your feelings and do things regardless of how you feel in the moment, because our brains left to their own devices are primarily safety and comfort seekers, and allowing them to take the reins and acting on those impulses all of the time, I think in the long run is going to lead to delayed discomfort. But I don't think these days for me are about doing the mentally hard things. It's not about pushing through the feelings and challenging myself. It's about actually touching base and coming back to comfort. So I think this is a nice idea for that. Like taking an hour and just doing whatever you feel like in the moment could be a really nice way of coming back to your comfort zone. You know, I think changing it up and actually just honouring whatever you feel like doing in the moment could be a really nice opportunity for some real balance and self-love and self-care, especially if you're really heavy on things like discipline and time blocking and lots of productivity on your average day. Going to a workout class is another great one. I choose these days specifically not to work out because I work out 6 days a week, but if you don't exercise as frequently, this might be a nice day to make time for a longer workout that you wouldn't make time for on an ordinary day. And it's going to give you a great boost of endorphins, which is going to maximize your mood and stabilize your stress levels and allow you to maximize your enjoyment of the rest of the day. I've also written down watching a film and potentially doing something like knitting or crocheting at the same time. Actually thinking about it now, you could also do something like adult colouring maybe. If that's your thing, just anything creative with your hands with something fun on in the background sounds like a really nice, fun, relaxing evening activity. Then I've written hobby time, kind of along the same lines as the favourite activity time slot. If you have a hobby that you love and doesn't make it into your average everyday routine, this could be a nice opportunity to make time for it. I'm noticing a massive theme here. Next, I've written down making yourself a brunch, but specifically something really tasty that you've maybe wanted to try for ages, but again, haven't made time for. Sundays to me, or Mondays with Sunday energy, scream smoothies and pancakes. That is just what comes into my head when I think of a Sunday morning breakfast. So those are ideas if those aren't things that you typically make. I also really like doing like a bougie egg dish. Ed is a fantastic cook, so it's usually him making this, but doing something like making mashed up avocado with lime juice and chili flakes and putting that on sourdough with poached or fried eggs on top and chili flakes and honey, like something really nice, but you wouldn't usually spend that much time on. Oh, actually, I just thought of another one. I had a whole year where I ate this for breakfast pretty much every single day. I would, instead of putting like oil or butter in a frying pan, I would put pesto in it and then fry a couple of eggs and a sliced up tomato in there, and then have that on sourdough. That is really nice as well. Again, it's a nice opportunity to put your favourite TV show on or a comfort show while you're eating it. Another one was doing yourself a beauty maintenance ritual, like an at-home facial or manicure or blowout, or going and getting it done professionally, getting an appointment if that's your kind of thing. For me personally, self-care does not mean maintaining your appearance. I know I will see a lot of videos when I'm looking for this kind of content for self-care days. I will watch a lot of videos of people doing their self-care routine, and it will be doing a mani-pedi, waxing, doing a facial at home, self-tanning. It will just be all the beauty maintenance things, and absolutely there's nothing wrong with that. That's just not what it means for me. But I think if you genuinely enjoy doing those kind of things, and if it fulfills your need for fun and pleasure and comfort, then absolutely, then it can become a self-care activity for you, and it could be a great idea to put into your day. On a similar note, you could oil your hair first thing in the morning. I actually used to do that, and I used to really enjoy not having to do my hair or not worry about touching it for the rest of the day. So yeah, oil your hair or put a mask in damp hair first thing in the morning and then wash it out later when you do your everything shower. You could make your self-care days that you try a new recipe. So instead of meal prepping something that you've done before, you could cook something new for breakfast, lunch or dinner. Again, it's a fun way to make time for trying new things. Then I've written down using your favourite skincare / body care / body wash products or perfume. This is a day for indulgence, and whilst I really do like the notion of wear your fancy perfume on an ordinary day because life is a special occasion, I like the notion behind it, but I also do think if your favourite perfume costs £300 a pop, it's not exactly financially viable to just wear it on any day you feel like it and then still be able to have it there for those special occasions. So I think using your favourite products on your self-care day is a nice compromise between use it anytime because life's a special occasion and only letting yourself use your favourite things on your wedding day or your birthdays. Then I've got reading. I do sometimes do this after cleaning and before the self-care portion of my day. If I've got time, I'll go and sit out on the grass by my flat, and sometimes I'll do it instead of the sim time if I'm feeling that more. It's not something that I prioritise for these days as much now because it is already a part of my everyday routine, but if it's not something that you do every day, I think this could be a really nice activity to include. I do think reading is a hobby that a lot of people that I know specifically would like to make more time for and would enjoy, but I think because it's not as instantly gratifying as something like TV or scrolling, it often gets sidelined in favour of those activities. So again, it's just a nice opportunity to make time for it and give yourself the gift of that slow dopamine release. Then I've got taking yourself on a solo date. Unsurprisingly, if you've come across her content, this one came from Tam Kaur's suggestion list. Actually, I forgot to say that at the start of the episode, but this whole my routine was based on a TikTok that she made. So I'll link that in the episode description as well so you can see the original source. But yeah, Tam Kaur, I've mentioned her quite a few times as well. She's big on self-love and confidence and female empowerment, content creation. She does a lot of YouTube stuff and she is big on solo dating. And this is something that I used to do on these days, like instead of the self-care portion of the afternoon, like I'd do my reset in the morning and then take myself on a solo date. And I don't do it on these days anymore because I want them to be more about comfort and indulgence. And, you know, if I was going to live my life as comfortably as I possibly could, I would never leave the house. I'm more than happy to be a little homebody on my sofa in my flat. But if you're someone who's going to get a lot more enjoyment and relaxation from taking yourself out to do a fun activity outside the house than you would from staying in, definitely add this in. You could take yourself out to the cinema, or go for dinner, or go to a cafe, take your book with you, get some reading into. There are quite literally endless things that you can do outside of your house to get some quality time with yourself in. And the last one I wrote down was having a phone call with friends or family. Have some quality conversation, increase your oxytocin levels, maybe talk about what you're looking forward to in the coming week. And that's the end of my list. And so the end of today's episode, I will keep this little outro very, very brief because my boyfriend starts teaching in the next room in 1 minute. But thank you so much for listening and for getting to this point if you've listened this far. If you enjoyed the episode or got anything from it, please consider following or subscribing, leaving a star rating, thumbs up, comment, all the usual stuff. It would just help the podcast get shown to more people who could potentially benefit from it, and I would be extremely grateful. If anybody tries this routine and enjoys it, please message me. I love talking to people about things that I talk about in the episodes. Or if anybody makes their own one, my DMs are always open. Shoot me one on Instagram or TikTok. Or if anybody has any topic requests, I'd love to hear them. So yeah, get in touch. But until I next speak to you, so much love, and I hope you have an amazing week. Yeah, speak to you soon. Bye for now.